Welcome back to Living Out Loud. I'm Susan Karp, the Executive Director of the Arlington Council on Aging. And no, I'm not alone in the studio today. I have a guest, Kylie. Thanks for joining us. Kylie is a Board of Health Compliance Officer with the town of Arlington. She's actually a colleague of mine that's, 2 or 3 offices right down the hallway from me.
Yep, I think so.
Yep. So Kylie, welcome. I'd like you to first maybe talk to us a little bit about what you do and the role within the town, as well as the differentiation of how our structure is.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Kylie Sullivan. I'm a Health Compliance Officer for the Health Department. The Health Department is a part of Health and Human Services, as is Council on Aging, where Susan works. And so what we do is we interpret and enforce local, state, and federal regulations regarding issues of health. And so oftentimes that's related to food establishments and housing issues. So most of my time is taken up by doing inspections, so a lot of housing inspections, especially landlord and tenant issues, and then going around to all the food establishments in Arlington and making sure they're complying with the federal food code.
So now when you say food establishments, just because I want to make sure, is it just restaurants, or do you, like for Town Day, for example, are you involved in those kinds of things as well?
Absolutely. So we do all restaurants in town, we do the schools in town, and we do temporary food events. So that would be something like Town Day, or we permit for weddings at Town Hall and things like that.
And actually you permit the events that we hold at the Senior Center when we have food in for one particular
we
day.
Do.
All right.
We do.
And the camps in town, do you also do those kinds of?
Yep, we permit all the camps in town and the pools in town. We do a lot of different permitting.
All right. So underneath the Health and Human Services, we can step back for a moment. So Christine Buongiorno is the Director of Health and Human Services, and then she's got 4 divisions underneath that umbrella. So there is Veteran Services, there is Council on Aging, which I'm a part of, the Board of Health. Okay, I knew I was going to do this. I lose my train of thought. There's AYCC, which is Arlington Youth Counseling Center. There is Arlington Youth Health and Safety Coalition. That's a big one. And then there's other commissions. So there's the Disability Commission, there's Human Rights Commission. I know I'm going to forget one, so pardon me if I've left one out. So we really do a lot underneath that one particular umbrella. So can you draw the distinction between the Board of Health Compliance Officer and the Health Department?
Absolutely. Yep. So the Board of Health is a 3-member board of community members who are elected by the town manager. And so one of them has to be a physician too. That's a requirement for the board. And so the board makes all the regulations, the local regulations pertaining to health, and they guide what the health department focuses on. So they're the statutory body of health in the town. And so I work for the health department, which enforces and does all the work that the Board of Health sets regulations for, if that makes sense. I know it's a little confusing. So the Board of Health is like my boss, and they guide the agenda, and then I work on a day-to-day basis fulfilling that work. And so the board has monthly meetings, but they don't work for the town full-time. They're just board members.
So they're advisory or governing? I may have caught you off guard with that one.
They're governing boards, so they're mandated by the state.
Okay. So, all right, so that helps us with the structure. One thing you mentioned that you work a lot with landlords as well as food establishments. What about things like bats and rats?
We work a lot with pests in town. We are experiencing a bit of issue with pests in town for various different reasons, and a lot of communities are facing similar situations. So we enforce the nuisance law. It's a state nuisance law, and so when people are having issues with potentially pests or odors, noises, things like that, we do work with residents regarding those issues.
So are pests another name for rats?
In part, yeah.
Okay.
They're more than just rats.
All right, well, let's talk about the kinds of pests that you are encountering.
We're encountering rodents, definitely rats and mice. And so, they're in town for various issues. We're a densely populated community, and so just as a result of that and human behaviors, we have a lot of food waste and dumpsters and the way we dispose of our trash, that can definitely attract rodents, and they're just a natural part of the habitat. So regardless of how clean we are as humans, they're always going to be here because they're just a part of the ecosystem.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you made some comment in terms of how we dispose of our trash. I just want to ask something. Does the Board of Health ever work with the recycling and that end of it?
Yep, with DPW, absolutely.
Okay.
So there are trash bylaws in town related to how you should properly dispose of your trash, and so oftentimes my office gets calls and I'm the one answering the phones, and so we have to go out if there are issues with trash, if there's debris everywhere, maybe someone spilled their trash barrel all over their property, or they're just not disposing of it properly, then we have to go out there and work with residents to fix that situation.
Okay, so really your office fields a lot of different phone calls, some relevant to your department, but just like any of us in town, someone will feel comfortable in calling one department, and there from time to time we have to refer, refer
absolutely.
on. That's interesting. Anything else about your particular role before I launch in with some of my questions?
No, I think I'm all set.
All right. Well, I did notice before we get into some of my questions that you're here with this gray box.
Yes.
Now, I'm all into props, but this is something that is Kylie's best friend when she's going out. So
it is,
I want to say,
absolutely.
what is in your box, Kylie?
Okay.
If we could just take a peek.
Sure. So this is my inspection clipboard. It's a heavy-duty clipboard. I bring it on all my inspections, and I store inside of it many different goodies.
So we don't want to be nervous. So if she's knocking on your door, don't go nervous. This is just her tool.
I have a lot of papers just so I can take notes, because we take notes of everything that we do. Inside I have a flashlight, which comes in handy during housing inspections, especially if I'm in the basement or something like that.
Yeah. And how many lumens do you have?
You know what? I can't answer that question.
I think
I'm not
this is
sure.
low on batteries.
It is
all
a
right,
little
Kylie,
low on
so
batteries.
We'll just put that right there. All right.
I do have a couple thermometers which come in handy both in housing inspections and when doing food establishment inspections. So this I use frequently for testing temperatures of food to make sure that food is being held at proper temperatures, because there is something called the temperature danger zone for potentially hazardous foods where bacteria can grow.
Okay.
And so we don't want food to be in that danger zone, which is between 41 degrees Fahrenheit and 139 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
You don't want food in that zone for more than 4 hours, because if it is, then bacteria will grow, which can lead to foodborne illness.
Right, and something that I'd like to point out is that we have two sites in Arlington for Meals on Wheels, as well as a congregate site for seniors to go and have a good meal at a discounted price. Anytime the food comes in, the congregate site managers are testing to make sure that the temperature of the food that's coming in is appropriate.
Perfect.
As well as for those of you at home that are receiving Meals on Wheels, it's the same thing. So they're testing the food. I find this one interesting. So this particular one, this was for the refrigerator, right?
It's for dishwashers.
Oh, dishwashers.
Dishwashers.
I'm sorry.
Yep. So it can sustain high temperature. So if I were to put this in a dishwasher and run the dishwasher, then it would break the thermometer.
Okay.
But this one is special and heavy duty, and so I take it out of this container because this container is plastic and it wouldn't do well in a dishwasher. But so I place this in a dishwasher, and so at food establishments, depending on the type of dishwasher, it could be a heat dishwasher or it could be a sanitizing dishwasher. And so if it's a heat dishwasher, then it needs to reach at least, I believe, like
hot.
Yeah, really hot. It needs to be hot, about 170 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
And so I put this in, and then I read the temperature to make sure that it's reaching the proper maximum temperature.
So actually, this is the face of the person you need to know when it comes to eating in restaurants in Arlington, because she's the one out there making sure that the restaurants are upholding their end of the deal in terms of sanitation as well as the proper food.
I can't take all the credit. We do have quite a
we don't want to
few
give
establishments.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
You know, we do have a couple contracted inspectors that also do high-risk food establishments.
Okay, but it all comes through this department, so it's all monitored to keep you safe. And I'm looking at something that's some color-coded here.
Yep. So those are sanitizer test strips. So restaurants need to have a sanitizing solution to wash down all food contact surfaces and if their dishes or pots and pans are too big to fit in a dishwasher,
Yeah.
then they need to use a sanitizing solution. And so these test to make sure that the sanitizing solution is at the proper concentration. So it can be too low, which wouldn't be doing a good job of
Yep.
disinfecting the dishes. And if it's too high, then that can leave the sanitizing solution, which is chemicals, on the plates and such, which would be bad because that could be some sort of contamination and lead to illness.
Technology, all right, all to keep us safe. Well, and I see you have a lot of pens, so I guess we'll close
a lot
your
of pens.
So I guess we'll go ahead and close this. And actually, Kylie, I think some of the things that I'd like our audience to know is how you and I, which is Council on Aging and Board of Health, how we interface.
Right.
Some things that I'd like to talk a little bit about is some of the food safety. Certainly, when it comes to food safety, there are cause and effect.
Right.
You know, and we certainly see a number of individuals that might be, you know, headed to the ER because of dehydration as a result of diarrhea or vomiting,
Right.
which were the results of some food issues. So if we could talk a little bit about you know, food safety, maybe we can talk a little, start up maybe as simple as expiration dates and those sort of
Right.
things.
So it is important to check expiration dates for any product that you're going to eat to make sure that you're not eating something that has already expired.
Yeah.
Be those dates, they do have real significance, so it is important to always check. And if your food product has expired, it's past the expiration date, then discard it, you know, throw it away, definitely. I recommend that. In addition, other issues related to food safety, sometimes, especially in the summer when it's warmer, maybe you're having a cookout and you're leaving food out for a long time. It's important to be aware that if food that's potentially hazardous, so anything that doesn't have a long, stable shelf life, so meats, dairy products, things that you have to...
Potato salad,
macaroni salad,
Yeah.
even just pasta or rice.
Yeah.
Things as simple as that you wouldn't necessarily think. Cooked vegetables, even cut vegetables, those all are potentially hazardous foods, so it's really important to make sure that you're not leaving that food out for more than 4 hours.
Cut fruit.
Cut fruit.
That's something I never really thought about. but
Yeah, in
it's-
Arlington, that's
yeah.
a potentially hazardous food,
Yeah.
according to our local bylaws. So
Yeah.
it's important to make sure that you're not leaving that out for more than 4 hours at a time, or altogether. Even if you leave it out for an hour and then you put it away,
Yeah.
and then you leave it out for 2 more hours and you put it away, you have 1 more hour, and then bacteria can start growing, and that bacteria can cause a lot of foodborne illness. So with cookouts and things like that, it's really important to be conscious of that. And then at cookouts, if you know you're taking some leftovers home with you, making sure you're getting those into the refrigerator right away.
Right, because what you could see from a barbecue is that you put it in a container, you put it in your car, and then you're driving, and then you set it on your kitchen counter for a while. So, and actually the bacteria rate, depending on what you're looking at, and we're not going to go through all of that. The bacteria rate is just incredible.
It's exponential.
On some of these.
Yeah.
Certainly, I would say it's probably more the dairy-based in general. But I think the importance there is, with regards to that, is to be very mindful
Right.
about taking things home after they've been around. Certainly at a barbecue, you can always get a bigger bowl, you line it with ice, and then you put,
Absolutely.
put like, the potato salad, macaroni salad,
Yep.
or whatever on it. And people know this in the senior center, I'm the troll under the bridge. And I can blame my Board of Health colleague here, but so many times when we have lunches, either someone is not hungry at the time or someone wants to take something home for their family member, I'm the one that watches the napkin get rolled up and the item gets put in the purse, and I'm the one that's having to go after someone to say, no, you cannot take food from this building in a purse. That's contra to the Board of Health rules. I have tangled with a number of people, and I'm probably, as I said, I call myself the troll under the bridge because I'm the one that says it has to come out of your purse. You cannot take it home. And I know your friend wanted to come because, and they're not here because they're sick, or I know that you're not hungry and you just want to take it home and you just live down the street.
Right.
But I'm not allowed to do that. And Kylie, tell them that I'm not allowed to do that, please.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, I would caution against bringing food home with you.
Right. So from our senior center, though, we're not we don't let you.
We don't let you
we
take
don't let
food home with you.
Yeah, and it's really for food safety issues.
Right.
And it also, to tell you the truth, on food safety issues, it's very difficult to track some things because certainly individuals that come and go through emergency services that are I'm not going to say repeat offenders in a sense, but that are repeat customers of the ER with regards to dehydration as a result of diarrhea and vomiting, because sometimes it's the source of that bacteria that is unknown.
Right.
And
absolutely.
You can become you can become dehydrated very quickly, even in the wintertime, as a result of some foodborne illness, not foodborne illnesses, but foodborne illnesses.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so I also want to talk a little bit about how cute it is to give bread to the birdies. You can talk a little bit about that and how really giving the birds the bread are really an invitation to
all wildlife.
Okay.
So a lot of rodents are attracted to really any food source. So even if you're putting it out for the birds, you're also feeding rodents. So rats and mice. Which is a big problem because that can lead to public health concern because rodents carry a lot of diseases and a lot of friends like fleas and lice with them. And so you don't want to invite them into spaces such as your property. You don't want to throw bread in your property or even in public spaces. The Board of Health really would kindly like to please ask you not to feed the birds because you're actually feeding the rodents. And even something as simple as a bird feeder, if it's spilling all over the place, that will also attract rodents.
Interesting. So when that happens at my house, my dog eats it.
Really?
But she's a black lab, so she'll eat anything.
She'll eat anything, yeah.
But anyway, so, politely is one thing. It does escalate to a point where you see Kylie show up at your door with this. And that's still okay because Kylie is wanting to educate and to guide.
And to work with you.
Right. So it's never a fear factor.
No.
I guess I'm thinking, I guess I'm being silly, but if you're not going to throw bread at your guests, don't throw bread outside to invite those rodents or birds in your house. So whatever you're serving at the table, leave it at the table.
Yes,
so but that's very important to realize because I've seen people where I live, they'll leave the bread out thinking it's for the bunnies, and I just like put my hands on my head. It's like, you're feeding the rats.
But I understand, people want to make sure that the birds and the bunnies and the ducks, they all have food. They're all so cute, but they're wild animals and they will find another food source. They've lasted this long and done well as species. They're going to succeed and find other food sources. You don't have to feed them yourself.
Right, and I'm not sure that the coyote that has been wandering around, I don't know if it's the sole coyote or whether it is a pack that just is everywhere.
Right, but you're also inviting them in as well when you feed the birds.
We don't want them. So some of the other more sensitive things that we get involved with. So, we get involved with Board of Health when it comes to those things. Another subject that sometimes can be a little tough to talk about is the hoarding situations. Because, again, it is a Board of Health issue, and if you could talk just a little bit about that.
Right. So from the Board of Health standpoint, hoarding is an issue because it is unsafe for someone to live in such cluttered conditions, especially seniors. It can lead to a lot of tripping and falling hazards, which is something that we want to prevent, obviously. Also, if there are emergency responders responding to an emergency situation in a house and they can't get in the house and they can't get to the person living in the house, then it becomes a huge issue.
Well, in emergency services, within the last, I'm going to say 2 months, I know of 2 deaths that have related to hoarding situations where there was a fire. So the individuals, I'm sorry, but I mean, they burned to death because firefighters could not get in. And also in hoarding situations, depending on what's being hoarded, the increase of flammability, and then what happens too, building collapses because the weight of water on paper, depending on what floor. So it's serious all the way around, but that's another way, that Board of Health and Council on Aging also interact. And again, the idea is to not evict or
No.
not condemn, but to work with an individual and certainly
Right.
utilizing services. And that's one thing too, is that, you know, Board of Health feels like a standalone, but there isn't anything within this town that we aren't all working together
Right.
to try to help, whether it's the renter, whether it's the homeowner, the landlord, trying to help remediate
Exactly.
any of the you know, ordinances that are out of compliance.
And we do have a hoarding response team here in Arlington, and
Yep,
so
yep.
it's
You got the
composed-
hoarding response team,
Yep.
as well as in the Council on Aging. We also have the hoarding
buried in treasures.
buried
that-
in treasures. So it's a 10-week program that we offer for free, and it really is very, very successful. And we're here really to work with you and to help you.
Yeah.
Let's see, what are some other Board of Health interactions? I'm kind of scratching my head because
Just to reiterate, any housing issues that seniors are having, you know, the Council on Aging and Board of Health work together.
Yep.
In the summer, particularly sun safety, also, you know, avoiding issues with West Nile virus, ticks, you
Thank
know,
you for
other
bringing
things
this up,
like
yep.
that. You know, we do have a mosquito control program in Arlington where we contract out and make sure that any mosquito breeding grounds are being disturbed so that they
you
don't.
said mosquito greeting.
No,
grounds.
breeding.
Here, come greet mosquitoes.
I don't think that. Well,
no, I don't think so. So all right,
no, to
breeding
make
grounds.
breeding
right.
grounds
Yeah.
to make them kind of just to. If you disturb water sources, which typically are mosquito breeding grounds, then it disrupts the breeding process and the mosquitoes can't breed.
Right, and I think the same thing even as homeowners. I mean, if you have a trash barrel lid
Yep.
that is turned upside down and it's been raining and you're not outside really, you know, to
Right.
empty it,
Right.
that can be,
Yep.
I mean, so something simple like that.
Even little kiddie pools, even if you
Yep.
you leave a cup outside or a bucket outside, something like that fills with water, that could be a mosquito breeding ground. A lot of tires, so if people have car tires or something in their yard that
Yep.
they are no longer using for their vehicle, they're just storing them,
Yeah.
that is a major issue with
Okay.
mosquitoes.
All right. Well, gosh, Kylie, a lot of food for thought there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so is there anything else that we want to leave our listeners with? We've talked about food safety, we've talked about the role of Board of Health, we've talked about your Board of Health Commission. If someone wants to reach you, if they just want to say, gee, Kylie, it was great to hear you on the show today. No, really, I mean, if somebody really has some questions, how do they get to you?
They can call us. So if you call the Board of Health, it's either me or my colleagues answering the phone. So I'll receive a call, I'll do the research about the topic, and I'll go out and do any inspections. So I see something all the way through, which is something that's really nice about you know, the services that we provide.
Okay.
So you can call the Board of Health anytime. Our phone number,
And what is the phone number?
it is 781-316-3170.
Okay, so that's 781-316.
Yep. 3170.
3170. And some of the papers that were inside of your toolkit here, those were duplicated forms. Those are the forms that Kylie and your colleagues
Yep.
are completing. So your call matters, and your call is followed up on.
Absolutely.
And I do want to say something, because we also had her bring a jacket that is
yeah.
right on your thing. So sometimes these are great jackets. So when you see, and they've got the Board of Health, so, you know, certainly, you know, in my world, we're telling everybody not to open up their doors. So, you know, if you see Kylie, if you see her little toolkit here, or if you see the jacket that says Board of Health, Town of Arlington, Massachusetts, that's the Board of Health, and they are there to be
To help.
they're there, yeah. They're there to help, and sometimes the interactions are, if you need assistance in remediating something, it may feel like someone's out to get you. No
Right.
one's out to get you.
We
And-
really want to work with residents and
Right.
help resolve issues in a manner
Exactly.
that's best for everyone involved.
Exactly. So, you know what, Kylie, I really appreciate you coming on set with me today.
Absolutely.
It's been great to hear a little bit about the Board of Health. We can't possibly comment on every single call that comes through, but the one thing for sure is that if you have a question, you now have, you know a little bit more about the department, and feel free to give a call.
Yes, please do.
All right,
Thank you.
great. Thanks again, and thanks for joining us. Until we see you again.
Hello, my name is Kylie Sullivan, and I'm a Health Compliance Officer with the Arlington Board of Health. At the Board of Health, we interpret and enforce state, federal, and local regulations pertaining to health, specifically regarding food establishments, housing issues, and nuisance complaints such as pests, odors, and noises. For more information, please visit the town website, or you can give us a call at 781-316-3170.